I think they should be embarrassed from this weekend, Mercedes. Yeah. I feel the only reason why they did so well in qualies is because of one man, not because of the team itself. It is down to Lewis, and they should be embarrassed. And they've got to. This happened at Silverstone. They've got to stop blaming certain parts not working at the track right. No, it's that you feel like there is a huge disconnect within Mercedes, and is it Toto now, the way he talks to the other mechanics, or like there is something else going on? And it'd be interesting. I mean, I don't see Lewis leaving, but also at the same time, it's like how much, if it's like banging your head against the wall, like where is your loyalty as a driver? Like they can't lose Lewis, but Lewis could probably lose Mercedes.
Hello and welcome back to the On Track GP podcast. We had an amazing race yesterday. Well, I say amazing. The inevitable happened with Max Verstappen winning, but we're going to go through it. And we're also, stick around for this episode because we're also going to have a lot of fun and redo the Ultimate Driver. I'm joined today not only by Le Mans winner Richard Bradley, but also today by Rachael Downie, TV broadcaster, F1 expert. Thank you so much for coming in and spending an hour with us today.
That's all right. Yeah. Anytime. That's quite a good, bigging me up there. So.
Well, you deserve the bigging up. Absolutely. Look, maybe, no spoilers because I think everybody's seen what happened yesterday. But Max Verstappen, inevitable, wins again so comfortably. What are your kind of, Richard, let's come to you first. What are your first thoughts about that race that happened yesterday in Hungary?
I thought it was a great race, and I think if Max wasn't involved, we'd be talking about it as one of the races of the season. But he was just on another galaxy. Like it wasn't, when we looked at qualifying and we thought, oh, this is going to be a lot closer than we thought. And then obviously Christian came out and said we compromised our qualifying car for the race, and we thought, yeah, whatever. Unfortunately, he was completely right.
Turns out he was telling the truth.
Exactly, and Max was in a position where he made it look very easy, but we can't forget how quick Sergio Perez was as well. At certain stages in that race, he was absolutely flying. So I think rather ominously, it wasn't just a Max factor. I think that the Red Bull as a whole in race trim at the minute was really, really strong.
Yeah, their race pace seems ridiculous. Rachel, I asked this question to everybody early on. Max Verstappen, is he already an all-time great?
It's so hard. Like it's not hard. Like him or not like him, I think that's like whatever I think personally about Max Verstappen. He's a dominant driver in an exceptional car. He's proving himself. Yes, he is. He is going to be one of the greats. We will remember him like that. I'm not sure what kind of legacy he will leave behind in the sport, but I think he's also matured over the years. The way he reacts on track, although he does race differently when he's with Lewis, he has matured over the years. And you can't fault the drive. You can't fault the performance at all. So yeah, he'll be around for many years to come.
Yeah, I know.
Unless he gets bored.
Well, that's the only thing that he keeps saying is that I might basically winning is getting boring. I might just do sim racing. I mean, that would never
happen though. Being great is so boring.
Yeah.
But then also I know we're talking about Max right now, but I think all of a sudden we're looking at Norris, and we're actually seeing someone that is potentially going to give him that challenge that he wants, that fight at the front. Yeah. So who knows what the next few races will be. I mean, we know it's a matter of time until he gets that final win that says, well done, that's the year, signed, sealed, delivered.
Yeah.
But
I think on that Norris point, that's really interesting because obviously we saw Marco come out and say that the only young driver at the minute who's going to be a good fit to be with Max at Red Bull is Norris. So, and now, we've seen, whilst we've still got the sort of smiley, cute side of Lando, we're seeing a bit more of an aggression come out now that the McLaren's at the front. So if he keeps on going that way and then he ends up in the same team as Max in the next couple of years, that could be something really exciting.
I totally agree. I do. And I said actually earlier before we started filming that you're seeing a little bit of maybe an arrogant side, or there's a little bit of an ego forming with Norris. And I know he said when he was interviewed, he basically said the Mercedes, Hamilton saying the Mercedes wasn't, a car that's not competing. He was basically saying that was rubbish. And it's like, all right, Norris, kind of get back in your box.
Yeah.
You still got to prove yourself. You're doing really well right now, but you still got to earn your stripes, as it were. Yeah. But he's doing great, and you do feel like McLaren, this is another thing I was going to say. It feels like Aston Martin, Ferrari have just dropped. I think McLaren are the ones that have just gone out in front and beaten.
Well, that second place is fascinating at the minute. And yesterday, it felt like it was the classic case of we have a mixed up grid. We finally have somebody else not on pole. We're so excited. It's going to be so different. And, Max won. It was over in about 7 metres. That fall from Lewis early on, it broke my heart. Yeah. I really wanted to see, and you mentioned it earlier, Rachel, that Max Verstappen races differently against Lewis Hamilton because they're like Disney villain arch nemesises to each other. It's brilliant.
It's a Senna Prost situation again.
Yes,
when there's two people like that, there's an extra ego edge about it,
And it'll always be like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was sad to see Lewis fall away. I mean, he was very frustrated, and throughout kind of the whole race, really, and even midway, he was going, how am I suddenly 10 seconds behind these McLarens? What's going on? Mercedes, bad week, would you say, for them, under the circumstances?
I'll tell you something which, again, it was obviously what happened in qualifying was just stupid, to be honest with you. I mean, to allow yourself to be compromised that much, through communication. But again, much like Silverstone, Russell's race pace once he was clear was very, very strong. And I think had Russell been able to start around where he should have been in sort of the top, you don't know because qualifying was so close, but let's say the top 6 to be safe, I think he would have actually maybe had a stronger race pace than Lewis, because Lewis up until the end when he was chasing Checo was actually struggling quite a bit, but George throughout the whole race looked really on it. And you remember in the middle there was a string where he was getting fastest lap for a period. So I think, it's annoying. They made mistakes and everything, but I think that there's a clear step up for Mercedes. And, with the summer break coming, more updates coming, then, we can maybe look forward to them getting back into the battle.
I agree, but I think they should be embarrassed from this weekend, Mercedes. Yeah. I feel the only reason why they did so well in qualies is because of one man, not because of the team itself. It is down to Lewis, and they should be embarrassed. And they've got to. This happened at Silverstone. They've got to stop blaming certain parts not working at the track right. No, it's that you feel like there is a huge disconnect within Mercedes. And is it Toto now, the way he talks to the other mechanics, or like there is something else going on? And it'd be interesting. I mean, I don't see Lewis leaving, but also at the same time, it's like how much. If it's like banging your head against the wall, like where is your loyalty as a driver? Like they can't lose Lewis, but Lewis can probably lose Mercedes.
Wow, interesting point. Because there has been the rumours of Lewis going, well, if I'm not going to get my 8th championship with Mercedes, am I going to pop to Ferrari? I mean, I don't think he's popped to Red Bull.
He's not going to get it with Ferrari at the minute, let's be honest.
But now there's conversation of, could he go back to McLaren to go and get it? If they've suddenly had this look, it's only 2 races with these. But the interesting thing, and you mentioned before, again, Rachel, about this jump that McLaren have had, I think the most exciting thing about that jump is they did it at Silverstone and they did it at Hungary, which are 2, Richard, you'll know this as good as anybody, they're such different tracks. Yeah. And so to achieve so highly on 2 completely different types of circuit is really exciting for McLaren. Richard, what is it about those tracks that are so different?
Well, the thing is with Silverstone, I mean, they're both high downforce. Hungary is normally max downforce just because it is literally like a street circuit. Until you actually go there, you can't believe how tight and twisty that place is. But what's promising for me, and I think looking at it, they're going to end up being quite quick at Spa, is Spa's actually a bit of a combination of both. Of course, we always talk about the famous corners, Eau Rouge, Pouhon, Blanchimont and everything. Of course, they're the high-speed corners, and they're similar to what you get at Silverstone, and obviously they were very strong there. But then you've also got a lot of slow medium speed corners, one after the other. You've got Les Combes, you've got the Stavelot chicanes, you've got the bus stop, you've got La Source. So to be honest, provided they've got decent straight line speed, which they seem to be pretty okay with, I think McLaren are going to be just as strong at Spa as they were at Silverstone and Hungary.
Yeah.
Agree, Rachel?
I totally agree. And also, I really like Oscar Piastri. I really like him. And I think, the vision that Zach Brown had about bringing those 2 drivers together was genius, because Oscar is, out of all the rookies as well this year, he's proven himself to be the best so far. And he's got a proven record anyway with like F2 and, he can do it. But I think Oscar, next year after, he's going to be up there, definitely.
Do you know what a really interesting thing with Oscar this weekend was? Like, okay, at the beginning of the race, he was very strong, and then he had a really difficult middle stint of the race, and then a hard but not as difficult end to the race. But on the radio throughout the whole race, he was completely calm. He didn't throw his toys out the pram. He didn't say anything. He just got on with his job. Exactly.
It's 22.
He's, but you saw it through the junior categories. He won all the championships he won. He won them one year after the other. He went bang, F4 champion, bang, F3 champion, bang, F2 champion. I think he's definitely one to watch for the future.
Yeah, and I hope he keeps that. He's quite an endearing character in the fact that there is no arrogance there. But again, it's probably an age thing, and give him a couple of years when he is winning.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the other cool thing with Oscar is he's got good guidance under him with Webber, and Mark is a very, very humble guy and always tries to keep on the straight and narrow. And you know, I think he's been with Oscar since he was in Formula 4, so I think that's given Oscar a very good grounding going up. But yeah, we all know when you get to the front, egos can inflate slightly, and we'll see what happens. But he's definitely one to watch for the future. Yeah.
So you think McLaren can do a good job this weekend in Spa? Got some good stats for you. In the last two races, Ferrari, this is breaking my heart, Ferrari have scored 13 points. Aston Martin have scored 9 points. McLaren have scored 58 points.
Wow.
Can McLaren catch and go ahead of, by the end of the season, when we get to Abu Dhabi, will McLaren be ahead of Ferrari and Aston Martin?
Do you know, you should have come up with another stat. You should have worked out how much time each team lost in the pit stops in the last two races.
Ooh,
I don't want to talk about that, Richard. I'm still recovering emotionally.
Because remember, don't forget, Alonso made a mistake and didn't, had the rear wheel spinning in the stop. So
yeah, and Red Bull did a 1.9. A 1.9 stop yesterday.
Right when they needed to as well.
And Ferrari did a 9.4 and got a penalty. So let's leave that there. Can McLaren catch Aston Martin, even potentially Mercedes and Ferrari? Can they come second in the Constructors' Championship, or do we think it's too late with that upgrade package?
I think they can.
I think they can. Yeah. I definitely think they can.
I mean, if it stays how it is at the minute, and they keep getting a 2-4, a 3-5, whatever, they'll rack those points up. And 58 compared to Aston Martin's 9 in the last two races. Let's have a little talk about Aston Martin here. What happened? Have they just run out of money? Did they upgrade too much, or did it spend too much on the car at the beginning and now it's just falling away? Because if there was ever a moment where you think, okay, they're going to have a good race because this circuit suits them, it would have been yesterday at Hungary. And somehow Lance Stroll got a point. I don't know how he managed to do that, but it was poor, really
just
poor.
Anonymous, Alonso just kind of went round and round in circles, and that was it. They just haven't had this zip for a while, though. It was the same at Silverstone. They were anonymous, and you can't see them coming back, to be honest. But as I said to you before, there's this summer break where all the factories close, but I can promise you every single engineer will have their work laptop with them on the beach in Ibiza, and they will constantly be doing stuff, and there'll be a wind tunnel that we don't know about in Charlotte or something like that being used. So they do have a chance to come back, but McLaren's, the rate of progress and the amount of progress that McLaren has made is very, very ominous for them.
Yeah, and Alonso did say, kind of pointed the finger at the tyres, and that they haven't been the same since Silverstone. So you do feel that Alonso, I know Aston Martin are going to save face and basically make out that there's, no problems and they're dealing with it. But Alonso's got enough years in his belt. Is that even a saying?
Yeah, it is now.
You know what I was going with, okay? And he knows it's more than just that, and then there's definitely trouble there. But yeah, I think there's problems with the tyres, and I don't really see after the summer break that it's going to make any difference.
Could they fall away? Could they end up being fifth?
Could do.
They tell you what, and I feel like we say this all the time, but you take away Red Bull and Max Verstappen, what's going on beneath it is amazing. It's that second position is so hotly contested, particularly now with McLaren coming back in. It's almost, is it too contested in the sense that you can almost now, you've got 10 drivers and you should know the 10 drivers that are going to score be in the 10 point positions on a Sunday.
I mean, this is the thing, disregarding the Red Bulls and everything. Okay, we look at the Aston Martin's position and we say they're ominous and everything. they weren't actually that far away from the sort of podium positions in terms of time. That's how close the midfield battle is right now.
That's great, isn't it?
It's awesome. It's really, really awesome. As you say, we should be happy because we're witnessing one of the great F1 drivers, doing something pretty special. Yeah. But man, it would be a great battle if he wasn't there. Yeah.
Oh my God, yeah. But a lot of people have been saying, the new regs, or it's basically Hamilton's gone. No, it's all Max Verstappen. But it is that middle of the field, middle of the pack that is brilliant right now. We're seeing some great talent, great drivers proving themselves to be.
You can't predict it. Yeah. Like honestly, if you took away Max next week, I have no idea who's going to win in Spa. Absolutely no clue. Apart from Max, obviously.
Yeah. Well, we did have a little mix, or close to what we thought was going to be a huge, crazy. What has happened? Alfa Romeo are starting 5th and 7th on a Sunday, and we're all going, this is brilliant. This is what we need. Zhou Guanyu sort of forgets where the clutch pedal is by the looks of it. It sort of hits the anti-stall or something, and it just doesn't quite work. And the chaos that unfolds from that is that it ultimately, I think it affected Bottas's race as well, because Bottas had to go slowly around him because they were on the same side of the track. And then Zhou eventually hits into the back of Daniel Ricciardo, who crashes into the two Alpines, like they go bowling. But Zhou Guanyu, what do you think that error was? Where do you think that came from?
I don't think it was driver error. I think it was an electronics thing. Yeah, because normally what happens with these cars is when the anti-stall kicks in, the steering wheel flashes like a Christmas tree. And you get a huge big warning on the screen, and every light's going off to basically say, what the hell are you doing? Sort it out, get going.
That would panic me so much.
And, we have it in most racing cars. Whenever there's something that you really shouldn't be doing, I mean, the steering wheel really lets you know. Like, even at Le Mans, when we're in the night, we turn the brightness right down on the steering wheels. But if we cross the pedals and use the brake and the throttle at the same time, it goes max brightness, everything flashes. It's like, get off. So, to be honest, and Zhou came out with an interview as well. He said that it looks like the system just disabled itself.
Oh, man.
He looked devastated, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. But, I think that Zhou is, to be honest, very underrated. I think the Alfa's kind of just a mid-pack car and has been. But, he's kept Bottas very, very honest over the last 2 years. And also, when you actually look at his junior CV, he's a very likeable driver in the way he races. He's a very clever driver, and he's a likeable guy. And I think that, he has the potential, and I think that he did a very, very good job on Saturday. And something happened to him, and then he got a bit flustered because it was his best start, and it all just went like that. But I think we can look forward to some good performances from him in the future.
I agree. I really like Zhou. And like you say, he's in an Alfa Romeo. There's only so much you can do in that car. And this is his second year. Give him another year, another season, and let that confidence begin to get even more for him. But I think he's a great driver. He really is, and I like him.
I think just going back as well to something that I've said previously is seeing how Perez has been in the last few races, disregarding this one, and comparing that to how Bottas was at Mercedes, shows the level that Bottas is on. And Zhou is consistently, he's putting big pressure onto Bottas. So I think we've got to give. Zhou deserves a lot of credibility for what he's doing there.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very good point. We touched very briefly there on the Alpines. That's 2 races, both cars not DNFing in a row. That is yikes. And ultimately, that one wasn't completely their fault, but
yeah, they were innocent there.
Weekend.
Just painful.
Yeah,
absolutely painful.
I don't think there's anything really else to say apart from that. I mean, hopefully they can have a better weekend at Spa, but with so many, there's probably 5 teams that are quicker than Alpine now. Yeah. They're looking to scrape a point here or there. It's tough. At the beginning of the season, I remember thinking 2 French drivers. They look like they're going to be quite decent this season, maybe even pushing.
Good, yeah.
But it's just a bit meh at Alpine.
Yeah, it's meh. It's a bit. It's all those facial expressions that we can do.
And the problem is as well is they're putting together a new management structure as well, which inevitably means that management in the Formula 1 team will be under pressure. So it needs to change quite quickly. Otherwise, you might be seeing Otmar showing the door.
Yeah. I mean, I hope things become more interesting for them when Ryan Reynolds, that whole kind of investment package comes over. I don't know how long that's going to be or where it's up to, but that would be really cool. That would be a really interesting thing for them.
Popularity to them. I don't know what else.
Well, maybe money if they do a series like they have with his Wrexham team on. I mean, look, Alpine have a lot more money than Wrexham did when they took over.
Yeah, you compare it.
Not Wrexham and Alpine, not quite. Daniel Ricciardo, I think he had a really good week. I think he had a really good weekend to come in, out-qualify, and then score, not score, but outplace his teammate Yuki Tsunoda. I think he had a really, really good start back in a very, very poor car. What were your overall thoughts for Daniel Ricciardo this weekend?
Do you know what? I agree. Great start, great in qualies. He fell victim to Joe. I think that's the best way to say it. The thing with Daniel Ricciardo, I don't think he is a consistent driver. I get the buzz around him being back on the grid. Commercially, the Honey Badger is great for Formula One. People love him. People want to see him. He's up for doing anything within the interviews. So I get the appeal for Daniel Ricciardo. And, you know, ultimately, is it going to be bye-bye Perez and them two, Max and Danny, in the future? Perhaps. But I still don't think he's the most consistent driver. So he might have done all right this weekend. We'll see what he's like in Spa.
Richard?
Yeah, I think, you know, he did better than I expected, especially coming back to a circuit like Hungary. If you haven't driven a Formula One car for an extended period, that is probably the hardest track to come back to, that in Singapore, at least from a physical point of view. I don't know if you actually noticed, but when they showed the camera facing him, he had these huge neck rests on for when his neck would inevitably get tired.
Interesting.
But I, you know, obviously, as you said at the start, he got Joed. Yeah. And for lack of a better term, but and also around Hungary, because of the way the circuit is, any tiny bit of aero damage to the floor is going to make such a big difference there, more than other circuits. So his race definitely would have been compromised from being hit. But again, I think it was a solid weekend back. I think that he had no pressure that this weekend. Everybody just kind of said, okay, get back into the swing of things and see what you can do. And I think we'll be able to see a lot more in Spa, but definitely not a bad weekend back.
Rachel, Richard and I have a £10, big money, £10 bet on.
Down now.
It's nearly 1.5 pints in London now.
Actually, I think we'll edit slightly, Richard. The bet is that I think Daniel Ricciardo will. If you started from now, I think Daniel Ricciardo would score more points than Yuki Tsunoda to the end of the season, and Richard on the other side of the coin thinks Yuki Tsunoda would score more points. But I think we should edit it and not say points, because they're probably not going to score any points, but maybe ending position. Yeah. And the person that ends up with the lowest score, if you add them all at the end, wins. Which side of the coin are you on? Daniel Ricciardo or Yuki Tsunoda come the end of the season?
I think Ricciardo will go above.
You're on my side.
Yeah, just because, you know, the other day we're talking about, or, you know, and I'm not the only one that said this, other people have said that Danny, and he's got the experience Danny would eventually perhaps take over from Perez. You can't say that about Yuki. So, and I know, you know, two different drivers, two different backgrounds. Yeah, I think.
Interesting. Very, very, very interesting. I'll leave you
yeah, that's it.
for the race, and then we'll put the race to the side, and then we'll do my fun game. Richard knows I like my games. And a fun game. Fun game. It's no fun unless it's organised fun. Max has now run. Well, firstly, Red Bull won 12 in a row now. Officially, it's the most ever. I think it was McLaren back in the 80s.
1988, yeah.
88, very good, thank you. Max has now won 7 in a row. Vettel currently holds the record for most individual races in a row with 9. Lewis only ever got 5, amazingly, in a row. I was sure he would have been well up there. Is Max Verstappen going to equal or better Vettel's record in Spa? And then when we come back after the summer break, do we think he's going to do it?
Yeah, because
100%.
Something happens. I mean, obviously we don't want that, but like, what is going to stop him from winning a race? I mean, I can't think of a scenario or a situation. I mean, I can, but yeah.
The only other thing I'd say, though, like, you know, it's you can't take anything away from Max, but, you know, just if you go back, because it kind of feels like when we're watching this, it's not quite as dominant as the Schumacher era, but you're hearing these sorts of stats and you're thinking to yourself, oh, wow, it's crazy. You just have to remember now we've got 24 races. You know, back when Schumacher and Hakkinen and people like Senna and stuff, they only had 16 races a season. So that's a huge advantage in the all-time stats that the current drivers have. So, yeah, I think he'll end up doing it. But the reality is that if you look at like when Senna had the dominant car, Schumacher had the dominant car, to be able to hit that stat, they would have had to, you know, have won more than 50% of the races in their season, which is a pretty bonkers number. Now, Max could still go on and do that. But I think that, you know, when you try and compare the past to the current time, it's a little bit difficult.
Yeah. And I think you made an interesting point there. So 24 races. It will be 24 next season, assuming that none of them get cancelled because of the flooding or anything. Too many?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, well, I agree. Why do you think that, Rachel?
I think it's a lot. First of all, yes, it's a lot for the drivers. The amount of time they are away, and also the demand. Like, these are sportsmen. You know, it's a very physical, and you can agree with that. It's very physical being a driver, and they're exhausted. I think, you know, the Mercedes car, for instance, this weekend, the temperatures in there were really high. It's exhausting, and then, but what about the teams? They're away from their families so much, and people kind of, and I hate this with F1. It's quite an elitist sport sometimes, and you get people who are fans of the sport being like, yeah, but you're so lucky to do that job. Yeah, but why should that then be compromised, that you can't spend time with your family? Like, you're away a lot, like, and we mean a lot. And it's not just the end of a race, they go home. No, that's like, now that people are going to be heading over to Spa.
Yeah.
Like, it's way too much.
Yeah, and we're going to have at least 2 triple headers in there. And it's just, I agree. I think it's a lot. It's also like, it feels a bit like, let's keep flogging this dead horse for money, rather than it's rather. I think that it's the fallout of Drive to Survive, which, look, is good. I'm all for Drive to Survive in terms of it bringing new fans to the sport. I think that's a positive thing, but not at the detriment of the sport. And I think it would just be, are people going to, you know, when you give people too much option, do they get a bit over it? I think around the 20 mark is good. 24 is a lot. It's an extra, in theory, a month of racing, 4 extra races. And
I think the other thing as well is, like, picking up on the point you were making about, you know, it's for the drivers, it's not really quite as bad, because they're in a position where, you know, a lot of them, you know, especially the front runners, they have access to jets, and they're able to fly to where they want to fly to and everything. But for the mechanics and everything, we're only thinking about the race weekend itself. You know, going on today and for the next today and tomorrow, they're going to have to dismantle everything in Budapest, and they're then going to have to go to Spa. They're going to get to Spa on Wednesday, and they're going to have to start setting up. Now, they do have another setup crew, but there's still extra work for the mechanics to do. And also what happens, and you know, a lot of drivers get this, is obviously over the weekend, your brain is so wired and you've got so much adrenaline going through you that you're completely pumped. But then inevitably at the end of the weekend, you then have a bit of a come down. And I tell you, the Monday after a race, unless you won on the Sunday, it's one of the most depressing days that you have. You just have no energy. You have a lack of motivation, lack of everything, because your body is on a come down. And you think, for those mechanics who are preparing the cars and involved in the pit stops and everything like that, they're in that position now where that adrenaline has gone and they're getting the come down and everything's catching up with them. And, you know, they're having, in the heat of Budapest, having to deconstruct everything. Then they're going to Spa and they're doing this. I mean, for me, when you have intercontinental travel, it's too much. As an example, you know, you've got a domestic series in America called NASCAR. They have 36 races across a year. But the difference is it's only in one country, and they have 2 sets of crews. So they split it between the mechanics. Whereas Formula One, they're consistently using the same crew.
Do you think F1 will get 2 crews? Like, if there's more, you know, fixtures?
Well, it's yes and no. I think if there wasn't a cost cap, or there was a way around it with the cost cap, they would. Because back in the period where there was no testing ban in Formula One, they used to have completely separate test teams. And the test drivers used to be testing 4 or 5 days a week normally. And, you know, so they were able to do it, and there is a way to do it. But all of a sudden, if you add another crew, that's going to take millions in salaries and travel and everything off your budget. So unless they can negotiate a way to have this for the sake of the crews, I don't see how this is ever going to be implemented.
Interesting. Well, we'll leave it with an ellipsis, ... to be continued. But look, let's move into. So, Richard, we've done this before. Rachel, this is where
Good
the
luck.
drama begins. So we are going to, or you are going to, build your ultimate driver. And I'll tell you what's quite funny is that Richard can't remember who he put down.
Yeah, I quite like that. I like that.
I was listening back again this morning to remind myself of Richard's choices, and I have them here, but I won't give them to you until you've done it. So we're going to have 6 categories. We're also going to add a category today. Feel free, of course, to play along at home. The rules of this are, I'm going to give you the categories, which are overtaking, defending, one-shot quali pace, driving in the wet, tyre management, and coming through the field. Those are the 6. And you are not allowed to pick the same driver twice for their skill.
I want to.
Not allowed to pick the same driver twice. And at the end, I'll throw in the little joker of what the kind of final add-on is as well. But does that make sort of sense? Building your ultimate driver, and you can't use the same one twice. Yeah. So we'll start with one of the most important things in Formula One, overtaking. Who are you taking their ability of overtaking into your driver?
I feel like I should caveat this with, I panicked. I was overthinking it and realised, like I said, there's no money in this. There's no prize, unless there is a prize. But...
we can get you a lollipop or something. I don't know.
There's not a prize.
The budget will stretch.
Okay, so I'm just going to go with, like, looking at last weekend But yeah, I have to give that little backstory because now I'm about to say what I'm going to say. But I've chosen Perez only because from this weekend I think he's shown he can, with the confidence and the a bit of fight in him, a bit of chutzpah, as my gran says. Perez is so I'd go overtaking Perez.
Yeah, I think that's a fair shout. We've seen him in the past come from 20th to first, and he's done a hell of a lot of overtaking recently because he's qualified so badly. How does it make you feel that Rachel's put Perez down for overtaking?
I think, to be honest, on the first side of it, it's the fact that you have enough reason to put Perez in that category. It shouldn't really be happening in that car, Yeah.
Good point, well made.
But as you said, his first Grand Prix win, he came from last. And he's been doing it, as you said, at the weekend as well. So I see the logic for that.
Okay, moving on to... Oh, no, sorry. I should tell you what Richard put. Richard put down Fernando Alonso for overtaking.
Okay, yeah, I like that.
Did you remember that you put that one down?
No, I didn't.
Okay, Fernando Alonso for Richard and Sergio Perez for Rachel. Next category is defending. You need someone to get their elbows out and stop somebody coming past them.
Yeah,
Who are you putting down for this?
I've changed mine.
Okay.
The first name I put down was quite obvious and I didn't want to do that. But I put Lando Norris.
Norris for defending.
Yeah. I think he's capable of getting those little elbows out.
That
sounds really condescending.
Little elbows. Well, we saw him do... Well, it wasn't maybe not quite defending, but yesterday in Hungary, we did see him keep Perez away, or he drove better enough to keep Perez out of sight. Yeah. So, yeah, good. Richard, you put down for this one.
I remember Perez.
Very good. Yeah. Sergio Perez.
Yeah. Abu Dhabi 2021.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Classic.
He pretty much, without the whole Latifi incident there, he changed the look of the race.
Yeah.
From
definitely.
2 laps. So.
Yeah.
So far, Rachel, you've got Perez for overtaking, Norris for defending. Now, one shot quali. So this is, you've got 2.5 minutes left on the clock.
This is it. In
Q3, you're on the soft tyres. Yeah. Who is the driver that's going to go and put the best time on the board and qualify pole? One shot quali.
I didn't go for the first one in my mind. Verstappen.
Verstappen for quali. Yeah. Wow. Interesting. Very, very interesting. Max Verstappen for quali. Okay. See, I remember we had yesterday Lex on, and he was saying that he doesn't rate Max Verstappen as a qualifier. He thinks it's his one weakest point, which I thought was quite interesting. I'm not sure I completely agree with it, but
as a driver, I wish that my weakest point was as good as that.
And again, in that car, I think it's. I'll put my money on it.
Yeah, I think Max is a very good shout. Richard.
Lewis.
Yeah.
No.
Oh.
You put Lando Norris down for
No.
qualifying.
Yeah, I agree. I still stand by that.
Yeah, you put Lando Norris down.
And I think I've had that proven in the last couple of races as well. Yeah. He's got the car and he's got to deliver and he's delivered both times,
Yeah. Yeah, and look, he's doing a beautiful job at the moment as well. So
yes, I remember what. Yeah, I understand.
You remember what you put?
Yeah, I remember now. I remember what I put Lewis for.
Moving on next, it's chucking it down like it has been quite a lot this year. I feel like we had like 5 wet races in a row, and this isn't like the track is drying or starting to get wet. It's full wet. We're on the blue wet tyres. Yeah. Who are you having the ability of in your ultimate driver for driving in the wet?
Hamilton.
Both of you put Lewis.
Yeah, same.
Both of you put Lewis. Very, very good. I'm not surprised by that. I think
Silverstone 2008 stands out. Where he won by like 45 seconds.
Yeah. He's great in the wet.
Yeah.
I mean,
can't go wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of you could go do countless
exactly.
examples of when Lewis has just been beautiful in the wet. I think I put Lewis down for tyre management, not wet.
Yeah.
In terms of like preserving the tyres, he does the classic.
He's good at that as well.
Oh mate, my tyres are shot, and then it was sort of like set fastest lap.
That's the excuse I would do though as well. Yeah. I'll get them. I'll show them.
Rachel, let's remind you of yours so far. So you've got overtaking Perez, defending Lando Norris, qualifying Max Verstappen, driving in the wet, Lewis Hamilton. It's a good driver so far. But who are you having for the one that I just mentioned, tyre management?
Alonso
for tyre management. Yeah. Good. Tell me why.
For a start, well, with his experience, he knows. He's one of those drivers that probably doesn't even need to ever be told, oh, I think we should go for these tyres or go for the slicks or whatever. He's on it. He knows it. I would have a lot of confidence in Alonso choosing the tyres. Carry on.
Again, the same names kind of keep cropping up because it's the guys that are right at the top of the crop. And Alonso, the other thing is he's been in the sport for so long. The experience he can bring on tyres. Yeah, what is he, 42? Crazy. Do you remember who you put for tyre management, Rich?
I think I do.
Go on.
Did I put Albon?
No. Albon was our like point 2. You put Charles Leclerc.
Yeah.
But
I hasn't shown it in the last few races, but I still stand by that.
No, yeah, but that's the thing. You've got to think long term. Albon was absolutely my sort of like asterisked one. But I mean, but he's done it a few times this season as well. But particularly the one that I'll never forget is that Australia race where he did the whole race on one set of tyres and then put it in the last lap and scored a point. And it was in a dreadful Williams as well, like a terrible car. And he scored them a point. It was amazing. Okay, on to our final category before I play the Joker card. This is now like what Sergio Perez did. You're starting in 20th, maybe, or even from the pit lane. You've had a terrible engine failure and you've taken the penalty and you're starting from the back of the grid. Who is coming through the field to win the race? Or whose ability are you taking?
See, now you mentioned to win the race. I think he could get through the field, but I don't know if he can necessarily win it. And I'm not even going to give you a backstory. I've got to own this. Nico Hülkenberg. I thought you were going to say Rosberg. Hülkenberg.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's how shocked I was. In my head, I was like, is Rosberg still driving?
Yes, wait, what year?
Hülkenberg.
I like Hülkenberg. I really like him. I have a real soft spot for him as a driver. I think he could do that.
I'm gobsmacked.
This is one shot.
Nico Hülkenberg. Oh my God.
Yeah,
okay.
The man who's still never got a podium in Formula One.
No. But
I tell you what, though, he has been qualifying ridiculously well this season.
He's massively underrated as a driver. Massively underrated. I mean, you have to look at, he's never really had the opportunity in a proper car. And, there's been discussion about him going to Ferrari or Red Bull or stuff like that. But just remember, when he was at Renault, he kept Ricciardo very, very honest. I think he even beat Ricciardo a couple of times, as in over the whole season.
How old is he now? Would he be considered too old to
he's too old, unfortunately. But I remember when he came and did Le Mans, he just jumped straight in and was immediately on it, adapted to that style of racing.
He's good at that, isn't he? Last minute, kind of just getting on with it.
And there's plenty of drivers from Formula One who have come to sports cars and not adapted at all to it. So,
do you remember who you put for coming through the field?
Yeah, Max.
Max Verstappen. Yeah. So I'll run you through both of your choices, and then we'll give you the final one as well. So, Richard, you've got Fernando Alonso for overtaking, Sergio Perez for defending, Lando Norris for qualifying, Lewis Hamilton in the wet, Charles Leclerc for tyre management, and Max for coming through the field. And Rachel, you've got... I still can't believe... I'm still getting over this Nico Hülkenberg-Rosberg thing. No, I like it.
What car he's in.
Hey, I like it. I'm not dissing it. I was just... And this is all about thinking outside the box. You've got...
Box I went out.
Overtaking Sergio Perez, defending Lando Norris, one-shot quali pace Max Verstappen. In the wet, Lewis Hamilton, tyre management Fernando Alonso, coming through the field, Nico Hülkenberg. And the final one, this is new for both of you because neither of you have done this. You've created your driver. They look strange, but they drive really well. The amalgamation of those 6 drivers. Who is your teammate? Who's the person that's going to be your rear gunner? You can't use somebody you've already had. Mm-hmm. Richard.
Bottas.
Oh.
No question. No question.
Forgot about him.
I mean,
Thought about Nico Hülkenberg, but not Bottas. Forget it.
Everything. He always kept Lewis on his toes.
Yeah.
And he was always dependable to be there. And as I said, that stat, he made Q3 100% of the time with Mercedes. And when you look at how Sergio Perez has been, it highlights how good an achievement that was. So I think he's actually better than a number 2, but yeah, that's where I put him.
What a good number 2 to have. Yeah, I think I probably would have said Bottas as well.
Oh,
Rachel.
Dear. Okay, I was again trying
It's
to think.
Logan Sargent.
Oscar Piastri.
I think decent.
Very decent. I think long term that's going to be a good shout.
And also,
I'm about longevity. I am.
But I think he's going to end up becoming. He's going to become seriously good. Give him 5 to 10 years, he'll be very, very good.
I was about to say, do you think he'll give Norris a run for his money?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Once he learns the intricacies of it, I think so. I mean, at the beginning of the race, the weekend, he got ahead of everybody, and he looked sharp. He looked very, very strong. Wasn't phased by it. Calm on the radio.
That's how you got to be, though, isn't it? Not intimidated.
Yeah, I'm excited by him. I think it's going to be really good.
I agree. I think there's something really cool about Oscar Piastri, and it's just, in terms of a rookie season, I can't think of many better rookie seasons, really, particularly with how he's adapted, most excitingly for me, with the upgrades. It's not like he's gone, oh my god, the car's suddenly better and I don't know what to do. He's gone, no, I'm ready. I'm ready for this quick car. Let me do it.
Chilled, laid back, like you said, because of like perhaps Webber and that Australian laid back. Number 2 driver.
That was that's a very, very, very good shout. And as you say, longevity as well. Nice. Well, look, moving forward, we next go racing in just a few days because of this stacked calendar. We are going racing in Spa. It's many, many, many people's favourite track. It's quick. It's terrifying. Rich and I have had a talk in the past about particularly that Eau Rouge corner being terrifying. Can you just tell me again that what it's like to go through Eau Rouge?
I remember the first time I did it in a Formula 3 car, and a Formula 3 car is easy flat. You in the dry, you don't even think about it. And I went in and I had to actually take to the tarmac runoff because I've never actually felt compression G before. And you go up the hill so fast, and until you actually see it, you don't believe how steep it is. And you think, how on earth can a car even get up there? But until you felt compression G, you just have no idea how to deal with it. And you just get pushed down in your seat. And I was just completely lost sensation. I was like, whoa, what's that? And I just bailed and took the runoff immediately. And you get, once you get used to it, it's okay. But the faster the cars get, the more daunting it gets. And the quickest cars I've driven around Spa, our minimum speed through there is 168 miles an hour. And you take as much curb as you can on the left. And you can't really see anything on the right. You set yourself up. And then you just see sky, and you just pray that the track's still there when you've actually done it. And honestly, it's properly.
It sounds genuinely terrifying.
It is genuinely terrifying. It really is genuinely terrifying. It's epic, but terrifying.
Good luck for the guys this weekend. Then it's still early. It's the classic. Let's do predictions, and then somebody qualifies. Like someone will say George, you'll qualify 18th. But let's do some very loose predictions. I will ask for a 1, 2, 3, but then also maybe just a team that you think might overperform or underperform. I'll tell you what, I'll go first, so that I'll get my ones out of the way. Ferrari 1, 2, and Logan's like no. I think Max is going to win it again. He's going to go 8 races in a row. I think the Red Bull's going to be so quick, and I think Sergio has. Didn't qualify great, but he was quick in race. His race pace has been quick, even when his qualifying's been bad. So I do think we'll see a Red Bull 1, 2, and then I don't think Ferrari are going to be good. I think it's probably going to be McLaren again. I'm going to go for Norris in third. There you go. That's my 3. Rachel, let's go to you next.
I won't copy. I agree with you with the Red Bull 1, 2. Because I think as well, Perez, his confidence will now be up there and he will feel more than capable of doing it. But I think probably, no, I don't want to have the same as this weekend. I'm going to go, obviously, Verstappen winning. Mm-hmm. I want to see, I think Norris second, but I think third, maybe Russell.
Whoa.
There we go.
He's been quick in the last few races. Race pace has been very strong.
Yeah, very interesting. Richard?
I think that you're all wrong.
Well, let's go.
Because the one thing that we haven't spoken about, which always happens at Spa, is it always rains.
Correct.
It rains all the time. And, at some point during the weekend, it's going to rain. Whether that's on race day or not, I don't know. So it's hard to go against Max, obviously. It will come wet or dry. I think, though, on the basis that it could be wet, so I'm hedging my bets a little bit, I think Lewis will give him a run for his money. So Lewis P2. And I think, to be honest, I think Russell third, come rain or shine.
You're thinking a good old weekend for Mercedes.
I think if it's wet, I can see Hamilton doing well if it's wet, but I can see George doing well if it's wet or dry.
Do you see before the end of the season Hamilton on the top step of the podium?
No, but I do see Norris on the top step before the end of the season.
So you think, I kind of wanted to round up on that. If somebody is to break the Red Bull streak and they don't go 20, it would be 22. 22 races now? Yes. We lost China and we lost Imola.
Something crazy.
So I think 22. If somebody's going to break that Red Bull streak and they don't win every race, which team is it and which driver is it? That's my final question of the day.
I agree. I think it'll be McLaren, and the way things are with McLaren, it'll be Norris.
Yeah.
I think Norris is the only one competing with Verstappen at the moment.
I mean, just remember as well the rate of progress they've actually made. There's a delta they found about 1.5 seconds since the start of the season.
Madness.
So if they clearly have a way in which they can analyze how to best make progress with the car. So if they keep going on that trajectory, the Red Bull hasn't exactly gotten better as the year's gone on. Verstappen had a particularly good Hungary, but in Silverstone he was fairly average for him, let's be honest. So yeah, I think it's going to be the McLarens. But the interesting thing is as well, you've got the two anomaly circuits coming up, where if you set your car for a certain circuit or a certain way, because these two are so different from the rest in terms of aerodynamics and aero efficiency, you can get shock results. And I'm thinking Spa and Monza. Because a lot of teams, Monza, everyone brings an independent aero package just for that circuit because it's such low downforce. So a team like McLaren or Aston, who have got a really, really good mechanical strong base, might go, okay, let's optimize an aero package for these two circuits, knowing that they're not going to be able to find the downforce for Suzuka, for Singapore, and just go for it like that. I tell you, just going back to your earlier point, who I think will be strong here and at Monza, Williams.
Well, that car suddenly looks quick, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Particularly, yeah.
I think Alex Albon made a very telling Instagram post, just kind of ignoring Hungary, said it's not our circuit. And Hungary is a max downforce sort of, twist and turn circuit. I reckon they're going for the trimmed out setup, which if they have done, the first circuit they'll be strong at will be Spa.
I'd love to see that.
Yeah,
I really would.
Well, it'd be nice to have Logan Sargent, make some progress.
I would love to see him get a point. I really would. He's obviously, because we've had a conversation before about people online calling him a bit of a Mickey Mouse driver and being a joke, and you will jump to the defence of him 100%, instantly.
100%.
You don't get into F1 if you're crap.
No, but also if you go back and look at his junior career, I mean, even at a junior level, all the drivers are just as quick as many of the drivers in Formula One. It's just they haven't got the whole package. And he was in a situation where he had to miss his season of racing for some ridiculous reasons. But then he came with the worst team in Formula 3, who historically very rarely score points, anything like that. And he won races with them. And
something, isn't it?
Yeah. And then I spoke to Trevor Carlin, the boss of Carlin in Formula 2, and said they signed him for Formula 2 based on that. He only had one season in Formula 2, and then he's been picked up by Williams. So he's not, he's in a difficult position because he's not in the greatest car at the minute, and Albon is doing some incredible stuff. But I think Logan gets a bit too much stick for the level he's actually at.
Yeah,
I agree. I do.
I think
what a place to leave it. Thank you so much, Rachel. What a pleasure to have you in today. Thank you for your insight. Thank you for playing my silly Ultimate Driver game as well. I will keep ramming it down people's throats.
We'll enjoy it.
Yes, and you will have a nice time while you're here. Please come back and speak to us again soon. It's been such a pleasure and particularly, as the season goes on and what happens with that second place battle, I think is going to get really, really exciting. Richard, as always, thank you very much for giving up some of your Monday to come and have a chat and play the game that you've already played. But for now, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us on the On Track GP podcast. We'll be back later this week with a preview for Spa, a little bit more specifically about what we can expect to the track and who we think might do well. And of course, we will be live on Sunday for the race. And if I'm not mistaken, it's a sprint at Spa, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, it is a sprint. Brilliant. Or maybe not, depending on how you look at that. But that's a conversation for the preview. We'll see you soon. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks very much, guys. That's On Track GP. See you soon.